Hey guys, what's up? It's your boy T for 365 Horror, and this is a horror movie discovery channel. I am just here to put as many horror movies on your watch list as possible. And in today's video, we are going to be looking at 9 brand new releases for you guys to watch and stream today. So let's get into it right now. Now we are going to get into the video, but before we do, I've got to remind you guys to please like and subscribe if you like this content. Also, this video is best watched with a movie tracker. I like to use Letterboxd. It's just the easiest way to keep track of the movies that you've seen and want to see. I also want to touch on the availability of these titles, as I have personally went to each of the sites and validated that these movies are out. So if you're having trouble seeing them, it's probably one of 2 reasons. The first one might be that you are region locked. Sometimes it takes a few days, even a couple weeks, for these movies to show up in Canada. And the other reason might be if you are using the alternative media sources or any kind of free site. A lot of these movies just came out yesterday, so I'm sure they're not going to show up on some of those for a couple days. And lastly, this is just a preview. These are not reviews and recommendations. I've went ahead and added timestamps in the descriptions. You can always skip to the next chapter or just go to the movie you want. And if you are interested in reviews and recommendations, then I suggest you check out my Every Movie I Watched in a Month series, my You Should Watch series, or any of my movie list series. This here is just a little something for the diehards like me that are always looking for something new to watch. And with that, let's get right to the new movies. The first movie we're going to take a look at this week is an action horror called Azrael, and this movie's available on Paramount Plus and VOD Digital. In a world where no one speaks, a devout female-led community hunts down a young woman who has escaped imprisonment. Recaptured, Azrael is due to be sacrificed to an ancient evil in the forest, but fights for her own survival. It is directed by E.L. Katz. Okay, so after watching the trailer for Azrael, this looks like a decent creature feature horror. Now, the trailer definitely looked like we could get some creeps and scares out of this movie, as even some of the visualizations, like the creature wailing, was just kind of unnerving. Also, with the movie being focused around her escape from this creature, we could get some really good tense escape scenes. Now, when it comes to the gore in this film, what we did see from the creature is pretty bloody and quite gross. I'm just not sure exactly of how much of it we're going to see in the movie, as we don't get to see that much in the trailer. Now, this movie strikes me as more of a big budget offering, so we see good production and it looks acted well. Now, the premise for the movie isn't crazy unique, but we're going to have to see if they throw us a little bit of a curveball on the reason why these characters have an oath of silence. Azrael looks like an alright movie, and it's going to get a regular priority on my watch list. Next, we're going to take a look at a horror thriller called Ghost Game, and this movie's available on VOD Digital. This movie follows a thrill-seeking couple who set their target in a haunted house and endure various incidents as they witness a family going mad. It is directed by Jill Givargizian. So after watching the trailer for Ghost Game, this looks like a decent to good rules-based supernatural horror. Now, it looks like it'll deliver on the creeps and scares, because not only do we get a supernatural entity, but we also get like this family plunged into madness. I'm sure with the events they depicted, we're going to get some good jump scares. Now, watching this trailer, I didn't really see much in the way of gore, but that's fine as long as they give us a good ghost story. Now, the characters seem acted well enough, and some of the family madness scenes we see, they just seem to come so unglued. Now, when it comes to premise, I actually like the premise of this one, as I feel like the mixture of subgenres do make the movie feel a little bit unique. And I really do think that they've set the stage for an interesting story, hopefully with some disturbing events. Ghost Game looks not too bad and will get a regular priority on my watch list.
We call it Ghost Game.
So this is like some cosplay home invasion.
It's a challenge. You live in the house without the homeowners knowing. Adrian and I have been planning something short notice. We have an opportunity.
An opportunity to break and enter.
Next movie we're going to take a look at is a comedy horror called Carved, and this movie's available on Hulu. A group of survivors find themselves trapped in a historical reenactment village on Halloween, where they must unite to battle a sentient, vengeful pumpkin. It is directed by Justin Harding. Okay, after watching the trailer for Carved, this looks like a decent comedy horror creature feature. Now, I don't think we're going to get much in the way of creeps and scares, but I do see it having some alright escape tension and maybe a jump scare or two. Now, we don't really see very much gore in the trailer, but usually these creature features tend to have quite a bit of gore, even if they don't always have the variety of kills like a slasher does. Now still, we do see the pumpkin creature do some pretty gnarly things in the end, and a lot of the stuff looks practical, so I'm pretty sure we're going to get some okay gore in the end. As for the characters, this movie is definitely a comedy, and the characters just seemed alright. Some of the jokes, they really do come off cheesy, but I'm sure that's probably supposed to be the point. The story and premise not only seemed interesting, but kind of unique, because off the top of my head, I can't really think of any other killer pumpkin movies. But when watching the trailer, I couldn't tell if their intention was to go really zany, or maybe witty situational with this comedy. Now, Carved looks alright, but it looks like it could have some eye-rolly but entertaining humor, so it's going to get a regular priority on my watch list.
Ready? Go!
Oh, I'm tripping balls, man.
Next, we're going to take a look at another comedy horror called Frankie Freako, and this movie's available on VOD Digital.
He's got a little freako.
Frankie Freako.
Workaholic Yuppie Connor is in an existential rut when one night he catches a bizarre ad for a party hotline hosted by a strange dancing goblin, Frankie Freako. Could this just be the recipe to spice up his boring life? It is directed by Steven Kostanski. Okay, so after watching the trailer for Frankie Freako, this looks like kind of a meh creature feature comedy horror. Now, just from the trailer, I can tell you right off the top, there's really going to be probably no creeps and scares in this movie. Now, when it comes to the gore in this movie, I didn't really see any, but when it comes to more of these doll horrors, and by that I mean that the character isn't a puppet or doll, but it's like played by a doll, you sometimes get a lot of like doll gore where they'll just show you the puppets doing crazy things or vomiting. So, I mean, we could get some of that, but probably not much else. Now, I really did like the story for this one. A guy finding himself in a rut, and then he calls a wild party line, and all these goblins come through and act wild. But I do find that we've seen kind of the party gone out of hand angle done to death. Now, I'm going to be honest, right off the bat, I thought Gremlins while I was watching this trailer. Now, part of the reason my mind immediately went to Gremlins is because I do think that this movie has a great 80s aesthetic. And if you are into that kind of era and you want some good 80s nostalgia, then I do think that this film is going to deliver that in spades. Personally, Frankie Freako just looked a little too zany for me, so unless I hear something really good about it, I think I might have to skip this one on my watch list.
Oh my God.
We're here to help you loosen up. We're gonna party hard, and then we'll be on our way. Time to get freako!
Shamadoo.
Next movie we're going to take a look at is a horror thriller called Don't Move, and this movie is available on Netflix. This story follows a seasoned killer as he injects a grieving woman with a paralytic agent. She must run, fight, and hide before her body shuts down. It is directed by Brian Netto and Adam Schindler. Okay, after watching the trailer for Don't Move, this looks like a good survival horror. Now, when it comes to the creeps and scares of this movie, I'm not sure that we're going to get very many creeps, but it does look like it packs a ton of tension when it comes to these escape scenes and situations. Now, as for gore, I didn't really see a ton of like super gory stuff, but I did see some thriller gore, you know, where people's ankles get slashed or, you know, the foot slowly stepping on a nail. So it did look like it was going to have some painful stuff in that respect. And I did like some of the environmental stuff we saw. For instance, her body kind of shutting down on top of an anthill, which just looks like it could be some like graphic, painful elements for sure. Now, the production and acting in this movie both seemed good. Now, one of the things I really enjoyed when I was watching this trailer is I did like this kind of unique escape twist. So I do think we're getting a little bit of a unique premise there. Just the idea that every 20 minutes she has this paralytic agent in her and her body shuts down. It kind of makes me wonder where the movie's going to go. Like, is it a game of cat and mouse where he just injects her and then she gets as far as she can and he recaptures her and injects her and it's kind of like a Groundhog Day? Or is it going to be something where it comes in waves, like one time she gets paralyzed and then she can move, and you know, how it's going to exactly unfold with that. While watching the trailer, I really did love the setup, and I think it gives way to just a lot of really intense moments. All in all, I really did like Don't Move's premise, and I thought that the movie looked good, so it's gonna get a little bit of a higher priority on my watch list.
Have you started to feel it yet?
What did you do to me?
Just a special relaxant to make things easier on both of us.
Next, we're going to take a look at an action horror called The Vampire and the Vigilante, and this one's available on VOD Digital. A beautiful seductress lures unsuspecting victims to a ravenous vampire, while a newly converted vampiress becomes entangled with a vigilante killer. It is directed by Renee Perez. Okay, after watching the trailer for The Vampire and the Vigilante, this looks like a little bit of a meh vampire movie. When it comes to the creeps and scares, I just didn't see many in the trailer, and I doubt we're gonna get many in the film at all. Now, I know it's gonna make the gorehound sad, but I really didn't see any kind of gore in this one. Now, to be fair, this is a vampire film, so I'm sure we're gonna get some good, like, bloody kind of vampire bites, maybe some, like, graphic vampire death, but I don't really see much outside of that. Now, the characters and the acting looked okay in this one, and I'm sure it's gonna have a decent budget, but just from what I saw in the trailer, and again, it's just a small glimpse, but it looked like it was more people kind of filming a movie than really trying to embody or act a role. Now, again, that could be an unfair critique because you just see such a little sliver of acting in the trailer. Now, as for the story, it did seem a little bit unique, but it really was just nothing that moved the needle for me. Now, with the story of it being a sexy seductress luring victims to this master vampire, we could get something kind of sultry and sexy out of this movie. The film could have some good TNA for those who are into that. Now, The Vampire and the Vigilante looked decent if you wanted more just like an action vampire popcorn horror, but honestly, it just wasn't really the movie for me, so I think it's going to get a lower priority on my watch list.
For centuries, my master has not felt the sun. He shields himself from it.
Next movie we're going to take a look at is a straight horror called Murmur, and it's available on VOD Digital.
It's okay, we'll figure it out.
A group of social media influencers become guinea pigs for a new app, which breaks down the boundaries between fantasy and reality. It is directed by Mark Polish. Okay, after watching the trailer for Murmur, this looks like an interesting dimensional world-hopping horror. Now, unfortunately, the trailer reaction for this one's going to be short, as they really don't show you much in this 49-second trailer. Now, when it comes to the creeps and scares in the movie, just by the nature of the creatures that we do see, them being kind of these fantastical beasts, I just don't see very many creeps in the movie. Now, when it comes to the scares in this movie, sometimes weird alien creatures really can result in some good scares. Not only through some intense escape scenes, but also through some good jump scares, because often animal-type creatures tend to act sporadic. I didn't really get a sense of gore from the movie, but again, the trailer's so short, who knows? The character features in the trailer really were short, but competent enough. Now, to be completely honest, the story is the real element of this trailer that interested me. Now, when it comes to an app or a time machine or anything that can bring people to these fantastical worlds, I really do love that premise. I really enjoyed one of the visual elements that the film really leans on, and that is just the characters always kind of holding and having these phones up. And to be completely honest, if you got to visit some wondrous other dimensional world, I can't see myself doing anything but filming the content, so I don't know why, I just liked that element. Now, one of the things that looked like it could be the Achilles heel for this film is it looks like it leans very heavily on CGI. And while what we seen in the trailer of the couple creatures wasn't too bad, I will have to see a lot more of the movie and reserve my judgment for then. Now, Murmur looks like it has a really interesting premise, and I'm already excited to see if it works or if it's a flop. So I think Murmur's going to get a little bit of a higher priority on my watch list. Next, we're going to take a look at another comedy horror called A Very Flattened Christmas, and this movie's available on VOD Digital. Christmas at a roadkill collection company gets bloody as employees are killed off one by an evil reindeer who is dead set on killing them all. Will they figure out who's the killer, or will they all be flattened? It is directed by Shane Wallace. Okay, after watching the trailer for A Very Flattened Christmas, this movie looks like kind of meh, or it could be a pretty decent slasher. Now, when it came to the creeps and scares, I just really didn't see any creeps or scares in the trailer. Now, when it comes to the gore in this film, I'm sure gorehounds will be happy, and honestly, depending on how much you really like gore, that's where the movie might take a leap from meh to decent, as the film really does look quite gory. Now, I really did see some gory parts that included things like exploded heads and stabbed eyeballs, and I mean, the effects really looked good and practical, so that could be a decent element again if you're into the gore. Now, I get it, if you're not really a gorehound, that's not really going to be a selling point, but honestly, above that, I only really saw subpar acting, so I would only even suggest coming to this movie if you're interested in comedy or gore. Now, if this movie is intent on being campy, or you like campy, that could be a selling point for the B-movie lovers. Now, when it comes to the story and premise, it does seem fairly run-of-the-mill, especially for a slasher, a disgruntled employee or someone seeking revenge on all the characters of the movie, and we'll find out exactly who it is and their motivations at the end. Now, even though this film looks good and gory, I'm still not totally sold on the acting and production, so I think A Very Flattened Christmas is going to get a little bit of a lower priority on my watch list.
I'm the dick puncher. I punch dicks, and I make millions, baby.
A friend dies, and that's it?
I got eyes and ears everywhere, watching us.
Last movie we're going to take a look at is a straight horror called Lore, and this movie is available on Tubi and VOD Digital.
Nothing is coming.
Four friends arrange a ghostly excursion. Their guide asks them each to tell the scariest story they have ever heard. But little do they know, those stories would have a major consequence for them and others. It is directed by James Bush, Patrick Michael Ryder, and Greg Johnson. Okay, after watching the trailer for Lore, this looks like a meh to decent slasher. I don't think we're going to get many creeps out of this one, but when it came to scares, I did see some decent escape tension and some jump scares in the trailer. Now, being a slasher, I didn't see much gore, but again, I'm sure we'll get some. But honestly, I couldn't really tell you if it's going to be brutal or over the top or not. Now, the production in this film for the most part seemed decent, and the acting seemed decent as well and didn't feel wooden. Now again, the premise for this one seems pretty run-of-the-mill. You basically get a ghost excursion gone wrong, where they tell stories that come to life, but who knows, when they tell the stories and they come to life, we could get a little bit of a supernatural element in it, and then we would actually get some real creeps and scares. Now, even though Lore looked alright and not too bad, I think it's still going to get a little bit of a lower priority on my watch list.
Before any man set foot on this soil, there was an evil here. There is a custom that we carry out on every tour.
Well guys, that's going to do it for another edition of new movies for you guys to watch and stream. I hope you liked this content, and if you did find a couple of gems for your watch list, please leave me a like and subscribe. Now, if I had to make a couple of picks this week, the first movie I would pick is Don't Move. I just think the premise sounds super interesting. I think the escape scenes seem tense, and it's going to be pretty good. Like I said, I'm also interested to see exactly how this paralysis kind of plays into it. I think it's going to be kind of a Groundhog Day where she wakes up and then she's got 20 minutes to see how far she can get, which is just a premise I find interesting and compelling. So that's going to be my first pick of the week. And for the second pick this week, I'm going to pick the movie Murmur. I just think it looks good. I like the premise. I think it could have some good tense moments. I do like the idea of people going to different worlds and filming content and just really seeing weird stuff. But in picking this movie, I am aware that it is kind of a double-edged sword, as the CGI really could make this movie fall flat. Well guys, that's it for me, and if you've made it this far into the video, I definitely want to thank you and appreciate you. I have got to get out of here as I have got a ton of movies to watch. I hope you guys have been well and taking care of yourselves, and I will see you guys in the next one. Peace.
President Munch needs a new concubine.
He's a keeper.